Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Hello everyone, welcome to our new course. It's a pretty long time no see. Anyway, this is part of the game and we are in our new class today. It's online class and our course is Word Englishes. So this is the first lecture of this course and we will talk about Standard English RP. So here you see down the contents of the lecture today. Standard English, received pronunciation, the history of pronunciation, history of RP rather, and RP usage, RP status, RP phonology, and conservative RP. So let's begin. There are varieties of English in the word. So the question rises here, what's the standard English of all these varieties? So in an English speaking country, standard English is the variety of English that has undergone substantial regularization, and there are some conditions, three conditions, which are it is associated with formal schooling and language assessment and official print publication. For example, public service announcements and newspapers of record. Public service announcements, uh, like in the interest of for the public awareness, there are some free announcements on different channels and streets and everywhere, loudspeakers, you know so many people take part in these, and for the public awareness and for changing public attitude and behavior towards a specific social issue. And newspapers of record, they are formally or officially recognized newspapers by the government, where you can publish your public or legal notices. This kind of newspapers, which are recognized by the government, they are called newspapers of record. So if language is there in public service announcements and in newspapers of record and in formal schooling and in print publications, and it has a process of language assessment, so that is considered standard English in an English speaking country. So before we move on, so just quickly have an idea about Anglosphere. What are the Anglosphere countries? So Anglosphere is a group of English speaking nations that share common cultural and historical ties to the United Kingdom, and which today maintain close political, diplomatic, and military cooperation. So they are called Anglosphere countries. So the Anglosphere is usually not considered to include all countries where English is an official language. Official language of Pakistan is also English, but this Pakistan is not part of Anglosphere countries. And this term is not therefore generally considered synonymous with Anglophone. Anglophone, in the English countries. Not all English countries are included there in Anglosphere. Although the nations that are commonly included were all once part of the British Empire. Most definitions which include countries in Anglospheres, so those countries are Australia, Canada, New Zealand, United Kingdom, United States, Republic of Ireland, and some Commonwealth Caribbean countries such as the Bahamas, Barbados, Jamaica, and West Indies. So these are Anglosphere countries. So remember them when we hear Anglosphere in our coming slides. Okay, as we just mentioned that the standard English is that which is associated with standard English of a nation, particular nation is that which is associated with education and socio-linguistic prestige. It is not inherently superior to other English dialects used by the Anglophone society, although it is associated with education, but it's not superior than other dialects in the Anglophone society. So this is the point to remember. And so what is standard then? The question arises here. So what's the standard? Standard, it should be understood to refer to this process of regularization and not to the minimal desirability. For example, standard of care. Standard of care, like, I mean, there is a possibility to establish a single semantic or grammatical interpretation for a piece of language. So there is a piece of language and there is only one option semantically or grammatically for its interpretation. So that is not standard. The only requirement is that it should go through the process of the regularization or interchangeability. For example, standard measure. For example, there are substantial differences in the varieties that countries of Anglosphere identify as standard, as their different names suggest. I mean, standard of measure. I mean, there is not one standard of measure that you measure every standard language in different parts of Anglosphere countries, so you measure their standard with some specific measure. No, it's not the case with the language. In other things, like in the weight, there is one standard scale of 1 kilogram, for example. So any weight that is equal to that standard is 1 kilogram. It's considered 1 kilogram. But this is not the case with English. So in different parts of Anglosphere countries, their standard English is different. For example, we see in Scotland, so the Scottish standard English is standard English in Scotland. In the United States, General American is thought as standard, but only for spoken. So, and spoken standard. And in Australia, the standard English is General Australian. In England and Wales, the term standard English identifies British English, the received pronunciation accent, and the grammar and vocabulary of the United Kingdom standard English. So these three things make standard English in England and Wales. What are they? British English, the received pronunciation accent, the RP accent, and the grammar and vocabulary of United Kingdom standard English. So received pronunciation. What is received pronunciations? This is our main topic today. Before that, it was just a prelude of our lesson. Let's see what is received pronunciations. So it's commonly called BBC English, Standard British Pronunciation, or Southern British Pronunciation. It is actually an accent of Standard English. RP is basically an accent of Standard English in the United Kingdom. So its definition is there in concise Oxford English Dictionary. Let's see the definition. The standard accent of English as spoken in the south of England. So here is the definition. It's quite interesting. You see, the standard accent of English as spoken in the south of England, although it can be heard from native speakers throughout England and Wales, but according to this concise Oxford English Dictionary, it's the standard accent of English as spoken in the south of England only. Anyway, uh, this is one of the definitions. So next point is what's the percentage of RP speakers? So what's the percentage who speak standard English, whose accent is RP, who follow RP accent? What people say about them. So first one, let's say Peter Trugel. So he estimated in 1974 that only 3% of the people in Britain were RP speakers. But this rough estimate has been questioned by the phonetician J. Vincent Lewis. Another one, Clive Upton, also noted higher estimate, higher, not higher, I mean very higher, but it's higher than Peter Trugel of 3%. So it's 5% only, as per the reference of Romani, and 10% with the reference of Wells in 1982, but refers to all these as, but he referred them as guesstimates only, I mean only just roughly estimated, and not, they say, they are not based on authentic research. So this is just roughly estimate, but you can imagine what's the percentage of RP speakers. So there are three figures. One is 3%, and then 5 and 10% respectively. So I think it's pretty low. Anyway, so what's the social prestige of RP speakers? So received pronunciation. Formally, before, I mean earlier, it was called, colloquially called, the King's English. RP enjoys high social prestige in Britain because it was called the language of the King's English. So of course, I mean there's no higher rank than king. So this the rank of RP was also very high. So why? Because it was being thought of as the accent of those with power, money, and influenced people. Though it may be perceived negatively by some as being associated with undeserved privilege. But some people thought that, I mean, people who speak RP, they do not deserve this privilege what the society gave to those speakers. So they disagreed with the prestige given by the society to RP speakers. So RP was the role of RP in education. Since 1960s, a greater progressiveness toward regional English varieties has taken hold in education. And the study of RP is concerned exclusively with pronunciation, of course, whereas Standard English, the Queen's English, Oxford English, and BBC English, they were concerned with matters such as grammar, vocabulary, and style. So here is the history of RP, how this name was emerged, who gave this name. So let's see, this is for good information. Actually, I wrote this part, I included this part of history in this lecture for students to read by themselves, but I think I'll try to be quick to save time because the lecture is a bit longer today. A history of RP. The introduction of the term received pronunciation is really credited to British phonetician Daniel Jones. So Daniel Jones, let's say, got this credit to coin this term of RP. In the first edition of English Pronouncing, how he gave this term, in the first edition of English Pronouncing Dictionary, Okay, he named the accent public school pronunciation first. This was the first step. So he gave the name to this accent as the public school pronunciation. Okay, public, that is in America, is considered as private. But the second edition in 1926, after the first in 1917, in 1926 he wrote, in what follows I call it received pronunciation for want of a better term. So in after, let's say, 17, 26, 3 and 6, 9, after 9 years, so he changed it to received pronunciation. However, the term had actually been used much earlier by P.S. du Bonacieux in 1880. So this is also another claim. Similar term, received standard, not received pronunciation, but received standard was coined by Henry C. Caville in 1927. Right. So the early phonetician Alexander John Ellis used both terms interchangeably. So far we've got two terms, an RP, received pronunciation, and received standard. But Alexander John Ellis used both these terms interchangeably, but with a much broader definition than Daniel Jones. Having said what he said, there is no such thing as a uniform education pronunciation of English, and RP in received pronunciation and RS in received standard is a variable quantity differing from individual to individual. So they are differ from individual to individual, although all its varieties are received, understood, and mainly unnoticed. Basically, this is standard English or RP, received pronunciation. All these names are for received, for alternative names of RP. And now we will see sub varieties of RP. It's difficult to to agree on one name. So how is possible to define it so easily? So there's of course obviously difficulty in defining RP, and because of this, some researchers have tried to distinguish between different sub varieties. Jameson proposed three varieties: conservative, general, and advanced. Uh, from conservative, he means that it refers to a traditional accent associated with older speakers with certain social backgrounds. From general, RP was considered neutral regarding age, occupation, of lifestyle of the lifestyle of the speaker. And advanced RP refer to speech of a younger generation of speakers. All right. So from these three categories, what he divided. So conservative means he put a limitation there for that only older people speak this conservative RP, and general RP there is no limit of age, no limit of occupation, lifestyle, whatever. So this is he considered it as neutral. So if the accent that everybody from every profession, from every age, all age people speak, that accent would be considered as general RP, and the people who speak, older people speak, that would be considered as conservative, and the accent that only spoken by young generations would be considered as advanced RP. So later edition, for example, Jameson in 2008, after in 1980 he divided it into conservative, general, and advanced, and in 2008 He used the term general, refined, and regional. He changed these names: general, refined, and regional. So you can find details about this. You are scholars as well, of course. Uh, Here next is Wells. Sorry, Wells in 1982 he refers to mainstream RP and URP. So these two sub-varieties he introduced. He suggests that Jameson's categories of conservative and advanced RP refer to the URP of the old and young respectively. Because we just say that Jameson divided into three categories. In the first one, only in conservative, only old people speak that RP, and the other one in advance, only the young people. So Wells considered both of these or combined these two into URP of the old and young, and another one mainstream RP. So two. So he introduced two sub-varieties. However, he stated that it is difficult to separate stereotype from reality with URP. Writing on his blog in February 2013, Wells wrote, "If only a very small percentage of English people speak RP, as Turtgill et al. Claim, then the percentage speaking URP is vanishingly small. And if I were redoing it, I think I would drop all mention of URP." You say, if you remember, Turtgill claimed 3% of the people speak RP. So out of those 3%, how many people in conservative and advanced categories would use it, which Wells considered under both of them under URP. He said, if it is that so small number, so then URP should be dropped off by myself, not because it's so little use of RP. Upton distinguishes between RP, which he equates with Wells' mainstream RP, traditional RP of Ram Saran, and an even older version which identifies with Crettenden's refined RP. So, in an article on website of British Library, it refers to three varieties: conservative, mainstream, and contemporary RP. What's the usage of RP? Let's talk about it briefly. Teachers who teach non-native speakers, who teach English to the non-native speakers, they often promote the modern RP accent of British English. Non-RP Britons who are abroad, they may modify their pronunciation to something closer to received pronunciation, so closer to RP, to allow better understanding by people unfamiliar with the diversity of British accents. Sometimes if you see some native speakers from different parts of the world, I've this personal experience. Some of our colleagues were from different parts of the UK, but it was very difficult to understand them. Their accent were very different, very odd, but if I wish if they had changed their accents closer to RP, so understanding would have been quite easier. So they may also modify, such people, so non-RP Britons, They may also modify their not only the accent but vocabulary, grammar, also for the same reason. RP serves as the standard for English in most books on general phonology and phonetics, and most dictionaries published in the United Kingdom use RP in their pronunciation schemes. Most British voices in apps like Siri and Google Assistant they speak RP, and most TV and radio stations across the UK use this accent. In dictionaries, the role of RP in dictionaries, most English dictionaries published in Britain, including the Oxford English Dictionary, now give phonetically transcribed RP pronunciation for all words. And pronunciation dictionaries represent a special class of dictionary giving a wide range of possible pronunciations. So British pronunciation dictionaries are all based on RP, though not necessarily using that name. Though they do not use the name of RP, but uh, they all British pronunciation dictionaries, they are all based on RP, although they may use different names. So you can feel free about whatever pronunciation is written in British pronunciation dictionaries, that is standard. You should be satisfied. So Daniel Jones transcribed RP pronunciations of a large number of words and names in the English Pronouncing Dictionary. So he transcribed RP pronunciations of large number of words and names in English Pronouncing Dictionary. So he transcribed the number of words, large number of words in RP pronunciation. As we mentioned earlier, that British pronunciation dictionaries are all based on RP, though not necessarily using that name of RP. So, for example, Cambridge University Press continues to publish this title as of 2011, edited by Peter Roach. The accent have been renamed BBC pronunciation. So they have Cambridge University Press has renamed the accent, RP accent, as BBC pronunciation, and two other pronunciation dictionaries are in common use. The Longman Pronunciation Dictionary, which is compiled by John C. Wells. So they use the name received pronunciation. Okay, and the Oxford Dictionary of Pronunciation for Current English, it was compiled by Clive Upton. This represents an accent name BR. So the accent name in this dictionary is BR, which is from British English. So based on PR, but claim to be represented or representative of a wider group of speakers. An earlier pronunciation dictionary by J. Winsor Lewis gives both British and American pronunciation. So this dictionary, it gives both pronunciation, British pronunciation, American pronunciation. So using the term General British and for the former, and General American for the latter. So for RP, let's say RP, they use General British, and for American accent they use General American. So this was the status of RP in different dictionaries. Now let's talk about the status of RP. And traditionally, received pronunciation was the everyday speech in the families of Southern English persons whose menfolk had been educated at the great public boarding schools, and those schools, they conveyed no information about the speaker's region or origin before attending the school. It is the business of educated people to speak, so that no one may be able to tell in what country their childhood was passed. In the 19th century, some British prime ministers still spoke with some regional features, such as William Ewart Gladstone, and from the 1970s onwards, attitude toward received pronunciation have been changing slowly. It was from 1970s that attitude about from RP started changing slowly. The BBC's use of Yorkshire-born uh, Wilfred Pickle during the Second World War was the first or earlier example of use of non-RP accent for some critical reason. But even then, Pickles modified his speech towards RP when reading the news. Although admired in some circles, RP is disliked in others. So now we'll talk about some negative aspects of RP as well. So far we were just praising RP, and now let's see what the left wing people say about this. It is common in parts of Britain to regard it as southeastern English accent rather than a non-regional one, and as a symbol of the southeast's political power in Britain. Based on a 1997 survey, Jane Stuart Smith wrote, RP has little status in Glasgow and is regarded with hostility in some quarters. You know, some people really, some in some areas really disliked. Okay, a 2007 survey found that residents of Scotland and Northern Ireland tend to dislike RP. Okay, and it is shunned by some with left-wing political views who may be proud of having an accent more typical of the working class. So working class people or working class political wings, they also they are proud of their own working class accent, so they disliked RP based on this. Now we will talk about phonology and RP. First we'll see consonant phonemes. Nasal and liquids such as these, ma, na, in, ra, la, they may be syllabic in unstressed syllables. The consonants in ro, arrow, in RP is generally post-alveolar approximant, which would normally be expressed with the sign, you know, the backward ra, I don't know how to pronounce it, in the International Phonetic Alphabet. You can see this in the chart, how to say it. But the sign, this normal one, ra, is nonetheless traditionally used for RP in most of the literature on the topic. So this is also used in RP. Alright, voiceless plosives like pa, ta, ka, sha, they are aspirated at the beginning of a syllable unless a completely unstressed vowel follows in RP. For example, the pa is aspirated in impasse with the primary stress on pass, because they're in impasse, primary stress is on pass, so it's aspirated there, but not compass, where pass has no stress. So therefore here pa is not stressed. Next one, the aspiration. Aspiration does not occur when sa precedes in the same syllable. So if there is sa in the same syllables, aspiration and its preceding, aspiration does occur, like in spot and stop. So there is no aspiration. When sonorant la, ra, w or j follows this aspiration is indicated by partial devoicing of the sonorant. When a sonorant follows, so this aspiration is indicated by partial devoicing of the sonorant. Then sonorant doesn't voice, but is partially, you know, voices or is partially devoices because of the sonorant is following it. Ra is fricative when devoiced. When Ra is devoiced, it's not voiced, so it fricates. It's fricative then in this case. Okay, syllable final pa, ta, sha, and ka may be either preceded by glottal stop, glottal reinforcement, or in the case of ta, fully replaced by a glottal stop, especially before a syllabic nasal like bitten. So there we have syllabic nasal na. So there is complete glottal stop, bitten. Alright. The glottal stop may be realized as a creaky voice. Thus, an alternative phonetic transcription of attempt could be attempt. So, as in other varieties of English, voiced plosives ba, da, ga, and ja are partly or even fully devoiced at utterance boundaries or adjacent to voiceless consonants. When they are adjacent or to the voiceless consonants, so they also become devoiced or partially devoiced in RP. The voicing distinction between voiced and voiceless sounds is reinforced by a number of other differences, with the result that the two of consonants can clearly be distinguished even in the presence of devoicing of voiced sounds. So here are these three things: aspiration of voiceless consonants syllable initially, or glottal reinforcement of voiceless consonants syllable finally, or lengthening of vowels before voiced consonants. Long list of, actually I've just picked few because it would have been very lengthy, so you can read further details on the document I'll provide you. So now let's move to the next point. It's already too long. Vowels. Vowels, there are examples of short vowels. We have monophthongs, short vowels, like I as in kid, mirror, and rabbit, U as in foot and cook, E as in dress and marry, A as in strut and curry, A as in trap and marry, O as in lot and orange, A as in ago and sofa. So these are some of the examples of short vowels in RP. You can see this in the table here as well. And examples of long vowel, like I as in fleece, U as in goose, ear as in beer. So they are monophthongs, long vowels, and R as in nurse and furry, and O as in north and force and thought, as in father and start. So these are some of the examples of long vowels in RP. So long and short vowels. RP's long high vowels I and U are slightly diphthongized. They are like diphthong, two vowels together, giving one sound, and are often narrowly transcribed in phonetic literature as diphthongs, I and U, like this. So they are in phonetic literature. They are transcribed in this form, like I and U, not like here. You see. So the terms long and short are relative to each other when applied to the vowel phoneme of RP. So when we this term long and short are relative to each other when applied to the vowel phonemes of RP. When they are applied to vowel phonemes of RP, we use these terms long and short. Long and short vowels. Vowels may be phonologically long or short. That means that they may belong to the long or the short group of vowel phonemes, but their length is influenced by their context. Okay? Their length is dependent on their context. In particular, they are shortened if a voiceless consonant follows in the syllable. If the voiceless consonant follows in the syllable, their voice is shortened. So that, for example, the vowel in bat is shorter than the vowel in bad. Bat, bad. So here, why is this difference? Because of the consonant. That voiceless consonant is following. Ta is voiceless, so is following the vowel, so it makes the sound shorter. But in bad, da is not voiceless, so it is giving a longer vowel sound. So the process is known as pre-fortis clipping. Thus, phonologically short vowels in one context can be phonetically longer than phonologically long vowels in another context. So it depends on the context only. You can say the length of the vowel. And for example, the phonologically long vowel E in reach, which ends with a voiceless consonant, okay, may be shorter than the phonological short vowel E in the word ridge, which ends with a voiced consonant. Because here you can say in reach, reach. So maybe there is, there must be, not maybe actually, there must be some difference in the length of these two vowels here. So because in ridge, after this vowel of I, so there is voiced consonant, but in reach, after this, there is a voiceless consonant after this. So that's why here the vowel is shorter than the vowel in ridge, where it's followed by a voiced consonant. Right, let's see what are some of the historical variations in RP. Like all accents, RP has changed with time as well. For example, sound recordings of films from the first half of the 20th century demonstrate that it was usual for speakers of RP to pronounce a sound as in land with the vowel close to E. Uh, like so that land, for example, land, we say land, it would be sound it would sound similar to a present day pronunciation of land. I mean, the RP pronouncers used to pronounce land as land. RP is sometimes known as Queen's English, but recordings show that even Queen Elizabeth II has changed her pronunciation over the past 50 years and no longer using an E like vowel in the word like land. I mean, she also doesn't say land instead of land, she also says land. So it means she also has changed her pronunciation. Some changes in RP during the 20th century include, see, words such as cloth, gone, off, often were pronounced with O instead of A, so that often and orphan were homophones. So now we say cloth, it was said cloth, gone, off, often, orphan. So often and orphan, they were homophones. Uh, the Queen still uses the older pronunciations, but it is rare to hear them on the BBC anymore. So let's say, I mean, the RP is still is remaining only to the Queen at the moment, not on the BBC. There was a distinction between horse and horse. You can see the spellings here, horse and horse, with an extra diphthong or appearing in words like horse, force, and poor. Poor. The symbols used are slightly different for these words. Wright classifies the sound in fall, low, so as oo, so it means full, low, so as oo, and that in more soar, etc. as over, more and soar. So he gives this sound over. So now we will compare RP with other varieties of English. Like most other varieties of English outside northern England, RP has undergone the big change, foot strut split. Okay. So RP is non-rhotic accent. Non-rhotic accent. Have you ever heard this? Okay. Anyway, uh, let me tell you. I mean, let me give you the definition of this rhotic accent in English. This is an accent or dialect is in which a letter R at the end of a syllable is pronounced. Okay, it does not actually have to be rolled, like R, R. Okay, it doesn't have to be rolled, but it is pronounced. Okay, and but in non-rhotic accent, in which there is R is disappear and is pronounced as a shaw only. Okay, so this is the difference between rhotic accent and non-rhotic. Rhotic accent, R is pronounced, and non-rhotic R is let's say missed or is pronounced as shaw. So RP is non-rhotic accent, so it means it pronounce R at the end as shaw. So ra doesn't occur unless followed immediately by a vowel. So if it's followed by a vowel, then it is pronounced. Pairs such as caught, caught, and formerly, formerly are homophones, except that formerly may be said with a hint of ra to help to differentiate it, particularly where stressed for reason of emphasizing past status. For example, he was formerly in charge here. Otherwise, don't pronounce it. You say formerly, formerly, court. You don't say correct. Correct. I think in Pakistan, in Punjabi, we may say it correct. So I'm going to the correct. Or in why? Because they write in Urdu as kaf, waw, re, and te. So that's why people say it correct. But RP or English is, let's say, non-rhotic accent, so they do not pronounce R unless it's followed by immediately followed by a vowel. So after court, so R, there is no vowel you can say, so it's supposed not to pronounce it. After formerly, after R, there is no vowel you can see here. Yeah, so it's supposed not to pronounce because of the nature of this language, but for special reason, okay, for emphasizing past status, we pronounce here, give a hint of R here. So unlike most North American accents of English, RP has not undergone the Mary, and all these words, okay, mergers. I mean, in North American accents, so all of these words, I mean, they are, let's say, merged, means they are pronounced in the same way. Okay, but in RP, all these words are distinct, different from each other. Unlike many North American accents, RP has not undergone like father, bother, or court mergers also. So in North American, they have been merged, or they give the same sounds, okay, same sounds of these words or these vowels, but in RP they are distinct from each other. RP has undergone vine merger, although you see the sequence, this symbol like HW is not present except among those who have acquired this distinction as the result of speech training. So this is not present there. This sequence of H and W is not there. I mean, only those people who have acquired this distinction as the result of speech training. If they have speech training, they have this sequence of HW. Otherwise, it's already been merged in RP as well. The Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, based in London, still teaches these two sounds for international breath as distinct phonemes. Okay, they are also distinct from one another in most of Scotland and Ireland, in the northeast of England, and in the southeastern United States. Okay, so there is let's say conservative RP. I would say this is the real, I mean, the remainder of RP. The conservative RP. Let's see what's there. Conservative received pronunciation is a conservative standard of pronunciation of British English. Formerly, the prestige model of pronunciation, it has declined in favor of others, less conservative dialects, primarily contemporary received pronunciation, also known as modern RP. So it has submitted to modern RP. conservative RP. Let's say the RP has submitted to modern RP. Conservative RP is the standard adhered to in the first and second editions of the Oxford English Dictionary, which starting with the third edition has been modeled on contemporary RP. Okay. Other terms for conservative RP are traditional RP and upper RP, the latter in reference to the association of the standard to the upper class and aristocracy. Notable speakers of conservative RP include Queen Elizabeth II and other older members of the British royal family, Sir Winston Churchill, and communicators of Path News and prior to the 1960s, the BBC. So it means after 1960 there's no conservative RP, so there is modern RP nowadays. Uh, Vowels and diphthongs, the phonological features of conservative RP which are distinct from contemporary RP include. So what's the difference between, what changes have occurred from the real RP or the old RP to the modern RP in vowels and diphthongs? Let's see. Happy tensing. This feature concerns the vowel at the end of words ending in Y, I, A, etc., which is normally transcribed with this symbol I. In conservative RP, this vowel can be assigned to this, the I, capital 1 symbol phoneme, whereas in contemporary RP, it can be assigned to IE phoneme, as it's more tense. So this is one thing. Unlike vowels and diphthongs, consonant phonemes have not undergone change with one exception. So there is only one change in consonant in contrast to the vowels. For speakers of conservative received pronunciation in late 19th century, it was just a standard for the consonant combination of WH to be realized as W. Also, it was transcribed as HW. As can still be heard, this combination, it can still be heard in the 21st century in the speech of many speakers in Ireland and Scotland, and a large minority in southern United States. Since the beginning of 20th century, however, this W phoneme, what you call as I tried, but I couldn't find this pronunciation, how to say it. Please search for it, any student. It ceased to be a feature of conservative RP, except by the most precise speakers who have learned to differentiate. So it's since the beginning of the 20th century, however, this phoneme ceased to be a feature of conservative RP. So there's no more feature of conservative RP, except by the most precise speakers who have learned to differentiate. So since 20th century, people have stopped using it, but only most precise speaker who have learned to differentiate, they still use it, meaning it has ceased to be a native feature of English outside Ireland, Scotland, and some bordering areas of England and southern United States. So thank you very much, gentlemen. Please take care of yourself, stay home, stay safe. Watch this uh, lecture. I'll put this on YouTube and give you the link, and just pass on your comments on easy class. That will tell me that you are actively participating, and you are contributing to the class. So we will learn from each other. So everybody will give his comments about lecture, about the content. If you have any queries, questions, so we can clarify, we can discuss. So there will be a discussion available also there. I'll create one discussion for every lecture. Thank you very much.